Welcome into the Inside Indiana Show. I'm Editor-in-Chief Ken Bikoff, along with publisher Ed Magoni. And Ed, we have a lot to chew over this week. The Hoosiers go down to North Texas, lose a game 24-21 in a game in which they were really pretty lackluster in, and it isn't exactly the way that you want to close out the non-conference season. A lot of flaws on display down there. Offense didn't do much. Defense didn't do much. They only gave up 56 yards in the second half, and I know that's something that the coaching staff is kind of focusing on and in just helping their confidence. But down 24-0, North Texas may have let off the gas a little bit, may have had a situation where they really let up. Hoosiers come back, but all in all, to me, it was a pretty disappointing performance down there in Denton, Texas.
Oh, there's no question about that, Ken. I mean, it was the first half was hard to watch. I mean, it was, they got pushed around on the front line again. It was like watching a rerun of the Ball State game on the front line. I mean, they really got handled up front. They couldn't stop Lance Dunbar, who just ran wild. I mean, he had over almost 300 yards of total offense, rushing and receiving, which is an amazing total for any back, let alone a Sunbelt back against a Big Ten team. And, the coaches said he was going to be good, but I don't think even they thought he would put up those kind of numbers against IU's defense. And like you said, in the second half, the IU defense came out. They got off the field. They only gave up 2 first downs, I think it was. And but the offense really didn't ever get a rhythm going. I mean, even when Dusty Heel came in and scored 2 touchdowns, it was basically on blown coverages by North Texas. And there was no consistency, no consistent drives down the field, no running game to speak of whatsoever, which is almost unacceptable against a Sun Belt Conference team.
Well, and if you, as highlights run, one thing you can't pick up on the highlights is the lack of energy from the team. And, like you said, it's very reminiscent of that Ball State game. They had more energy during the Virginia game. It was a little inconsistent against South Carolina State, and then it was back down and flat against North Texas. And I think that is something that has to be disturbing for this team, especially since they're getting ready to go into Big Ten play.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, you expect to build up momentum throughout the non-conference season as you head into conference play. Indiana started on a bad note in non-conference play, losing to Ball State at Lucas Oil. They finished on a bad note against going to North Texas and losing to North Texas. And in between, they played decently. I mean, they gave Virginia a good game. Probably should have won that one. They handled South Carolina State. They didn't look great doing it, but they got the job done. If they had gotten the job done this past week against North Texas, I think there would be a lot more enthusiasm around the team as they head into the opener against Penn State. But you go down to Denton and you lose to like I said, a Sun Belt team. Not that the Sun Belt is anything to be disrespected. I mean, they have good players there. I mean, Texas is an incredible stockpile of talent to take from. But at the same time, you just expect a Big Ten team to win that game, and I think maybe that's what the Hoosiers did, and it cost them.
Yeah, there's no question that. I know some of the players have admitted that they were kind of overlooking North Texas, and also those same players said, "I'm not sure why." Considering that we've had our struggles, just because we're a Big Ten team doesn't mean that we're automatically going to win these games. And I think that's kind of the mentality that the Hoosiers really are dealing with to a certain extent, because of the fact that they have guys that have been around. They've come close before, and I do think that there's a confidence issue, and part of it with that energy is confidence. This is a group of seniors who've come close a lot of times. And yet they still haven't been able to get over the hump enough to build any kind of confidence, and I think that might be wearing on some of the players as well.
Yeah, I think that, and the fact that they got the new coaching staff in there, they changed their off-season methods, everyone was training really hard, and they have yet to see the results, has some of them doubting whether or not the results are going to come regardless of how hard they work, and that may be causing setbacks in practice and forcing, or not forcing, but causing players to not practice as hard, which is leading to problems, in practice as far as being ready for the next game. And I think that showed this week at North Texas.
Yeah, and Coach Wilson has talked a little bit at his press conference earlier this week, just about the importance of getting the most that he can out of his older players, and wanted to play a little clip for you from Coach Wilson, just about how he feels when it comes to the young guys versus the guys that have been around a little bit longer.
Old guys, they need to get a loving feeling back in the way they're going about their business instead of going through the motions, because as they go through the motions, the young guy by evaluation is just as good as the old guy. I've got more value in playing the young guy. And that's not slamming the old guy. The old guy's got to earn his right. Like I say all the time, every team is led by the seniors. And right now we're being led in a way that's got us a little bit where we are. I'm challenging those guys, not pointing fingers. Let's lead this team strong down the stretch and make these last 8, 9, 10 weeks of your football life, getting ourselves in position to be a bowl team. Everything we want is still in front of us, and we can accomplish things that haven't been accomplished here in quite a while. So even though we're struggled and don't have the results we want, there's a lot of things to play for. Do we have the fiber, the wherewithal, the passion? Will our seniors go after it?
Now, Ed, of course, the older guys, they are looking for a little bit of spark from them. They're looking for some leadership. And one of those guys is DeMarlo Belcher, wide receiver. Missed last week's game with a leg injury, and is somebody that they're really counting on to step up his game going forward and provide a little bit more leadership.
Well, I definitely think he needs to be a leader on the team. I mean, I know all the receivers look up to him. I'm sure if you look at the number of times they've tried to force the ball into him in the passing game, obviously he's the safety blanket for a lot of the younger quarterbacks, Everett Wright Baker and Dusty Keel. And he draws a lot of coverage and opens up a lot of the other younger receivers like Deweese Wilson and Kofi Hughes and Cody Latimer and all those guys. By drawing double coverage, they get single covered, and then it opens up the whole IU offense. His absence last week really hurt them. And, he needs to be on the field for IU to be successful offensively and be able to build a rhythm. And it doesn't allow teams to bring that safety up closer to the line of scrimmage to stop the running game as well. And in addition to that, he just needs to set a good example for the other players because, he's the only, he and Dre Muhammad are the two senior receivers on the team. And, Dre Muhammad works his tail off and earns everything he gets. DeMarlo, maybe he's coasting a little bit thinking, he's the big man on campus, but he needs to get his mindset straightened again and start, performing at the level he's capable of performing at.
Yeah, and his presence also opens up the field for his teammates and gives them a lot more room to run because defenses are focusing on him so much. Now, of course, one of the veterans that won't be around for the Hoosiers anymore, running back Darius Willis, head coach Kevin Wilson said that basically Willis's career is over due to a knee injury that hasn't really healed. He said that he's going to be done. So Darius Willis no longer a part of the equation for the Hoosiers. However, the rest of the Hoosiers have to prepare for Penn State. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at this week's game against the Nittany Lions.
What's up, worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? You doing good? Come on, let me in!
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please!
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana Show. Ken Bikoff with Ed Magoni. And Ed, the Penn State Nittany Lions are the Hoosiers' next opponent for the Big Ten opener. Not maybe what Indiana really wants to see right now. Nittany Lions 14-0 against the Hoosiers in their history since joining the Big Ten. The Hoosiers also haven't won a Big Ten opener since 2000 against Iowa when Cam Cameron was the head coach. And yet Penn State's kind of an interesting team because they don't score a lot of points. Their offense is really not what you expect from a team that is as successful as they've been, but that defense is among the best in the country and among the best in the conference.
Yes, and I think a lot of people look at the Temple game. That Penn State had such a hard time with Temple, but Temple's much improved this season. I think people forget about that. But you can't just base everything on one game. If that were the case, Indiana would be in a lot of trouble. But they may be in a lot of trouble this Saturday. I mean, First thing about the Penn State offense is that they're going to try to establish a running game. Joe Paterno has always put the running game number one. Even when he had Kerry Collins and guys like that quarterbacking the team, Penn State's always been a run-first team. And they have two very good backs with Curtis Dukes and Silas Redd who can pound the ball. Redd is a faster back. Dukes is a bigger back. IU's defensive front is going to have to play a whale of a game because the only way to stop Penn State is really to shut down their running game and then put it on their quarterbacks, who they use a two-quarterback system, which is kind of unique. I mean, it was not a popular choice in Happy Valley when Paterno said they were going to use both Bolden and McGloin, but they've done it, and they've done it pretty successfully, losing only to Alabama, which is not a bad loss at all. But the defense is the key there. I mean, they are tough to move the ball against. They kept Alabama, they kept that game close for a long time before the offense just couldn't move the ball, and they wore down a little bit. But Indiana's going to have its hands full driving that ball against the defense. Devon Still is an incredibly talented defensive lineman, and IU's smaller offensive line and young offensive line is going to have its hands full trying to slow him down from getting to the IU passers and in the backfield disrupting the running game.
Well, I think especially with a team that is so young, it's going to be a real challenge for Indiana because of the fact that these young kids, these freshmen, are going to see Penn State across from them. They're going to see those white helmets, the blue uniforms, and there is an intimidation factor there beyond just the fact that the Hoosiers aren't nearly as big overall as Penn State, and they haven't had that kind of success. I wonder how much of this is going to be these kids saying, well, if we couldn't get the job done against Ball State and North Texas, what are we going to do against a team like Penn State?
Oh, that's definitely going to come into the equation. I mean, they have to play confidently. If they don't play confidently, they're going to get run over. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, they were handled up front by Ball State and North Texas, and if they don't come out and play as hard as they can and believe that they can push Penn State around and believe that they can match up with Penn State, even if they don't, they have to believe that they can. I mean that sounds crazy, but at the same time, it's a mindset. I mean, you may be giving up 20 pounds, but you have a bigger heart, and you can get a little bit of leverage on the guy. Maybe a little bit shorter, you can get more leverage on the guy. But the IU offense has to be able to move the ball against Penn State's defense, or they're going to get run off the field. It's that simple.
Well, on the flip side of that, Ed, of course, is the fact that if the Hoosiers come out, smack the Nittany Lions in the mouth early on, it could really help the confidence of the team, especially since Penn State's quarterbacks have shown a tendency to make some mistakes when they have to throw the ball a lot and kind of get taken out of their game a little bit. But it is going to be key, I think, for a lot of those young guys to come in and play with a lot of confidence early on. Now, one of those young guys that's going to be taking on Penn State for the first time and has to avoid being intimidated is freshman offensive lineman Collin Rahrig. And when we come back, our own COURTNEY CRONIN will be talking with him.
It's a new year. There's a new buzz. And there's a new Inside Indiana magazine. For more than 20 years, Inside Indiana has been your best source for the kind of in-depth coverage of Hoosier athletics you crave, and now the best just got better. By calling 800-282-GO-IU, you can experience 12 packed issues dedicated to Indiana athletics in full-color glossy brilliance for only $49.95. But that's not all. You'll also receive access to our new Inside Indiana Express edition online, featuring game previews, news, photos, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? To stay up to date on the Kevin Wilson era and all the excitement surrounding Tom Crean's Hoosiers, plus all the news you want on the rest of Hoosier athletics, call 800-282-GO-IU today. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana show. Now, again, Ed, before we went to break, we talked about how some of the kids are really going to have to step up their game against Penn State this week. And right now out of Memorial Stadium, COURTNEY CRONIN's with one of those young kids, Collin Rahrig. COURTNEY, how are you doing?
I'm great, Ed and Ken. How are you? Thank you for the welcome. Joined alongside redshirt freshman right guard Collin Rahrig. I'm COURTNEY CRONIN. Collin, Talked to you yesterday. Let's continue the hot streak, as we should call it. You started the South Carolina State game at right guard, continuing your success at North Texas. What's it mean to be a freshman getting this much playing time in so early in the season?
Well, actually, it's kind of a surprise to me because I came into it just being the second string center, and now I have the chance to be able to step up my role for the team and try to contribute as the best I can as early as I can. So.
Is it a bit nerve-wracking, though, being a freshman, being thrown into the mix so early, considering this team kind of came in not necessarily, having strict roles as to who was going to be filling them?
It's a little nerve-wracking being out there just early, being smaller, but I think once you get into the groove of everything, it kind of settles down and you just play football.
Now, you played rugby. Now, a lot of people probably know that throughout high school. You're on the USA under-17 and under-18 national team. That's got to have some sort of effect on you playing on the offensive line.
Yeah, a little bit of a hard-nosed type of attitude sometimes. Coach Fry has a little bit opposite sometimes, but it's just really sticking your nose in there with guys that maybe be 100 pounds more than you, but it shows dividends with how fast I can move off the ball, and pretty much.
You've been playing rugby, or I guess you wouldn't call it playing rugby. That's the right term, right? You've been playing it for 4 years. 5 years now, is that going on?
4 years.
So you've been doing it almost longer than football, isn't that right?
I've been playing football since about 5th grade, so not quite as long, but still pretty close.
What exactly, do you see the differences or similarities? Where do those fall into place?
Rugby is a little bit more running. Football is more of a stop and go. And, of course, the only time I'd ever touch the ball in football is playing center. So rugby, I actually have a chance to run the ball. But, it's more of just both defense and offense combined one time for rugby. But
Now, it's one thing, they say, positions kind of have their stereotypes. The wide receivers got their group, the running backs do. The offensive line, it's kind of, you guys got kind of fit into your own mold. And, being out there with other freshmen, Bernard Taylor, just having other guys out there with you, Peyton Eckert as well. How do you guys, mesh and keep each other in line to make sure, you're on top of your game?
I think that we just keep each other accountable. And, we'll be sometimes goofy, but just to keep it light at times. But, we'll definitely keep each other up to a high standard and play as though we are older guys.
Now, the South Carolina State game, going back to that, 11 false start penalties, mostly coming off the offensive line. Where do you guys go in terms of, making sure you know your cadence and your timing and, going forward into the Big Ten season that way?
We just had to focus a little bit more. I think we were trying to come off the ball too fast, and we just kind of let go of thinking about the cadence and what snap count was. So I think we're just going to kind of pay attention more to that. We did a better job last week, and then we can just keep improving week to week.
All right, now a big, exciting weekend coming up for you. Your first Big Ten game playing in college football. Besides taking a look at the scheme, working against their run game with Silas Red, what are you taking away from that? It's got to be a pretty exciting time for you.
Yeah, they're pretty big up front. Their defense is pretty well known for being a Penn State defense, and they got some pretty big guys up there that can really get off the ball really quickly. And I think we're just going to have to try to go out there with our quick tempo and try to see how they can stick up with that. But it's mostly just it's got to last 4 quarters, so we'll try to outlast them.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Colin. Ed and Ken, back to you. Maybe you can learn a few rugby tips from Colin over here.
Great job, Courtney. We appreciate it. Now, Ed, certainly with the Hoosiers playing against Penn State, again, we talked about where this team's confidence is. But do you think that they can maybe get a little bit of a spark because they're going to be playing a conference team, a team that they're maybe a little more familiar with?
Well, certainly the expectations aren't there. There's no pressure on IU. The pressure is on Penn State. Penn State's going to come in this game heavily favored. IU just needs to, do what they did against Virginia. They have to come out. They have to believe they can win the game regardless of the past results like they did against Virginia. And they have to come out and play their guts out. It's that simple. And if they do have some success, like you said, early in the game against Penn State, I think they can force Penn State into some uncomfortable situations. The question is whether or not they can actually come out and get a lead on Penn State against that defense. If they're able to do that, then they should believe that they can win that game, because they can.
Well, belief is certainly a big issue in college football every single week. And when we come back, Ed and I will tell you if we believe Indiana can beat Penn State.
up, buddy? You doing good? Come on, let me in!
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please!
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana show. Ed, it's time to jump on the hot seat. Last week we were both wrong. We both picked Indiana to beat North Texas. I guess we were only 3 points wrong ultimately, but bottom line is, how do you think the Hoosiers can fare this week against Penn State?
Well, IU is, despite their 0-14 record against Penn State, has played Penn State tough in the past. I mean, they've always been able to compete with Nittany Lions. It's almost like Iowa. Iowa, they always seem to be able to give Iowa a good game and Northwestern a good game. And Penn State's another team that, Penn State's had a couple of games where they've blown Indiana out, but there's also been some very close games in this series. And, for Indiana to make it a close game, they need to stop the running game first and foremost and be able to move the ball against Penn State's defense. Find a way. They have to be able to move the ball and keep pressure off their quarterbacks. But ultimately, what seems to happen in these type of games is, particularly against younger kids like IU's playing this week, I think Penn State's older depth and superior depth is going to wear IU down. And I just don't think come fourth quarter they're going to be able to stop the Penn State running backs. That tandem of Silas Redd and Curtis Dukes is a lot to stop. I mean, they're two very, very good backs. Silas Redd has the ability to go distance on any given carry, and Curtis Dukes just pounds you with that huge, almost 240-pound frame. So if they can find a way to stop them for 4 quarters, I think they can win. But I don't think they're going to be able to find a way to win.
5 times in this series, games have been decided by 7 points or less. Indiana does play Penn State tough, but it's not consistently tough. It's from time to time. Certainly if they get up early, I think that this could be an interesting matchup because of the fact that Penn State's offense just hasn't been that consistent, that productive, and shown an ability to really come from behind. The issue is, though, I just wonder where this team is mentally, especially coming off of how they've performed in 2 of the last 3 weeks, and also against Ball State as well. And I think that the Hoosiers fall to 0-1 in the Big Ten with this one because Penn State's just going to have too much defense, harass Edward Wright Baker a little bit too much, and it's just going to be too much for Indiana to handle this week. Well, I know that's all that we could handle for this week. We're out of time. So for Ed Magoni, this is Ken Bikoff. Thanks for watching, and pace yourself.